All right, today we're going to talk about how you can set up custom sidebars with the new story template tools that we just rolled out in July. So uh, you can set up to 9 custom sidebars. So by default, if you use the single sidebar story template, it is going to populate. There we go. With widgets that are placed in what's called your non-home sidebar widget area. And again, you can add widgets to a widget area in the widget control panel. Depending on how many widgets that you have on your site and how many drafts you have, that can increase the load time of the widget control panel here. So you might have to be patient, but it will eventually load. And as you can see here, I've got a non-home sidebar widget area. So that is going to be the widgets that populate by default. In addition, if you are using the dual sidebars template, which we talked about in yesterday's webinar, so if you missed that and would like more information, just request that one by a support ticket. You can load widgets into the secondary story sidebar, and that's going to be what populates by default on the dual sidebar template. But today we're talking about how to create custom sidebars. And so to do that, we first need to create some more widget areas in which we can load widgets to populate those sidebars. So to do that, I'm going to come to my SNO dashboard dropdown, go down to design options. And then I'm going to go in the design options menu to the story page templates tab. And then it's this middle column here. So you see by default, we've got the 2 that I just mentioned, and those are already loaded. I've already got a couple custom sidebars created. So there's a lot of ways that you might be able to use these custom sidebars. And again, you can create up to 9 of them. So I've got mine set up as a couple of different advertising sidebars. So, maybe you've got a contract where, you've got a business and they want to make sure their ad appears on all homecoming stories. You could set up like a homecoming advertising and then make sure to put their ad in there and then use that sidebar on all of your homecoming stories. And I'll show you how to set the sidebar that you want to use in a little bit. The other idea that we kind of had was with 9 sidebars, you should be able to create a sidebar for all of your kind of legacy categories, news, opinion, sports, if you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how I would do that. To create a new widget area that's going to, again, show up in that widget control panel, I just click this button to create a new widget sidebar. And then I can give it a name. So I'm going to call this one sports. Sports, I feel, kind of lends itself best to a custom sidebar because there's unique content, unique widgets specifically for sports that you can add in there. So now that I've named it, I just click the Save All Design Options button here. And once I see that green box up top telling me that it's saved, I can now go to the widget control panel. And again, it might take a moment for this to load up here, but you notice now down at the bottom of my list, here are my custom sidebar widget areas. So I just created it. So sports is empty here. So now I just need to add some content. So some things that I might want to have in the sports widget. We have if you have the site booster, you've got widgets for the sports schedule or sports standings or sports results. If you don't have the site booster, you should still see this SNO Sports Carousel, which is going to display your most recent sports scores. And those can be added. If you have the site booster, it says game scheduler. Otherwise, if you don't have the site booster, it'll just say games there. So I'm going to go ahead and add a score carousel to my sports sidebar. There you can customize the widget, and we'll be doing a webinar later on this fall about how you can load or how you can customize these widgets and the widget control panel. So keep an eye out for that if you're not familiar with the widget control panel, and you'll be able to check that out later on. So I'm just going to keep this pretty much set as default, just show a few more scores there, assuming that maybe we've got a longer story. And then I'm going to also add a story list widget. And so then I will have it using the secondary area. We'll show maybe our 4 most recent sports stories. So again, not getting too involved with the settings here. Obviously, if you were doing this on your site, you'd probably spend a lot more time customizing these widgets. I just want to show you generally how this works. So now I'm going to quickly grab my training text here. So I've got some copies. So now I've got a sports sidebar. And so to use that on the sports page, what I'm going to do is add a story. And then I'll grab my placeholder text here and put it in there. I'll use the single sidebar template. In order to use these custom sidebars, you do need to use either the single sidebar or dual sidebar template, or if you've created a custom template, you can, and it has sidebars, you'll be able to use that as well. So if you missed how to add a custom template, we talked about that when I did the story template editor webinar earlier this week. And so if you missed that, would like that recording, feel free to send us a support ticket and we'll be happy to send you the link for that one. So I'm just doing a single sidebar here. I've got my text, I've got my headline. We are ready to rock and roll here. So then I'll go ahead and add a featured image, which you always want to do. And then I will make sure I categorize this as sports. And then in the story design box here, we've got customized sidebar content. So by default here, it's pulling in that non-home sidebar area. But if I click the drop down, I have the option to replace that with any of the other custom areas I've created. So I'm going to select sports here, and then we'll publish this story. If I go look at that story now, I've got my score carousel pulling in the most recent scores. And then I've got my most recent sports stories over here. So you could set that up. If you did it for opinion, maybe you do your most recent opinion stories and you could add in a poll widget over here to encourage people to participate in your most recent poll and get their own opinion out there. News, maybe you could add a Twitter feed to either your publication's Twitter, or if there's a school Twitter feed that would be beneficial, you could add that there. Again, I'm seeing on a longer story, I've got plenty of room if I wanted to add more widgets. However, if you know that you write a lot of shorter stories, just keep in mind that the more widgets you have, the greater the height of that sidebar. So if this story was, really short, maybe like a news brief, and I have a really small featured image, I might end up, if I have a sidebar that has too much content, inadvertently creating some white space underneath here. So just kind of be aware of that and know how you're going to use that sidebar. So yeah, a quick recap there. So so step 1 is creating the new widget area. And so that's going under the SNO dashboard dropdown and selecting design options. And then once you're in design options, going to the story page templates tab. And I'll go ahead and do that opinion one here. So then you create a new sidebar widget area. And we'll go ahead and call this one opinion. And then I'll save design options. That actually creates the widget area. So now that it's created, I come back under the SNO dashboard dropdown and go to the widget control panel. And now I see that new area that I've created. You might want to add the word sidebar after this. It might make it a little more clear for anybody else who's going to be doing some design work, because right now opinion's not super clear. I'm thinking about that as I drop into the widget control panel here. So I'd probably go back and maybe rename this, just say opinion sidebar. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a quick story list widget to show my most recent opinion stories here. Again, we'll have a separate webinar on the widget control panel. So if you'd like to learn more about how all of this works, keep an eye out for that one. And then I'm also going to grab my poll widget and just use the most recent poll here. So every time I publish a new poll, it's going to show up here in this widget. So those are both placed in the opinion widget now. And so now I'm going to add a story. Grab my placeholder text here. Add the byline, make sure I'm using either the single sidebar or dual sidebar template, as those are the two that by default have a sidebar with them. Add my featured image here. Select that it's in the opinion category, and then come up here in the story design box, customize sidebar content. And then in this dropdown, I can select my newly created custom sidebar for the opinion stories, publish that one. And then if I take a look at the story, it pulls in my most recent opinion stories. And so I'm noticing here that it's, the most recent story also appears in the sidebar. So there are ways to adjust that with some of the advanced settings on those widgets. So again, if you want to know about how to do that, check out that widget control panel webinar that we've got coming up. And it looks like I would need to add a new poll as this one has expired. But if I did, that newest poll is going to get pulled in and show up here on the right side in that sidebar. So that's how you can create custom sidebars and then apply those to the story where you would like them to go. There is a way, if you, for some reason, wanted to have a different default sidebar that's used, you can set that back in the story template editor. And again, there's a different webinar we did earlier this week that goes over this tool in detail. But if I open the story template editor here, and it's one of the, and I'm editing one of the templates that uses a sidebar, I can come over and come down to the template design options here. And if I wanted to have a different default sidebar getting pulled in, just again, by default, I can set that here in the story template editor. So that's how you can create and use the custom sidebars. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and type those in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. But otherwise, thanks for joining me this morning. We look forward to seeing what you all come up with these custom sidebars and how you choose to utilize this option, which we think is really going to be able to enhance those story pages and allow you to create a nice custom look for your different sections or add in advertising that will hopefully be beneficial for you. So thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Yeah, quick question here. If you wanted this or any other webinars, you can just, when you're logged into the site, submit a support ticket and let us know the webinar topic and the date of the webinar, and we'll be happy to send you the link and the passcode to get that recording. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and have a great weekend.